In this video we'll look at how to complete the ANOVA analysis when you have more than one independent variable, and in this example it will be when you have one independent variable which is between subjects and one independent variable which is within subjects. So here I've got some data. So if you'll remember from the other week, we had an experiment where individuals had had different amounts of sleep, and then they'd been given a general kind of memory and orientation score, and I looked at the number of errors on that dependent measure. So I've now gone and done a more complicated version of this experiment where I've now got two groups of individuals. So if you look at this leftmost column here, so about half of them have done regular exercise for the previous month, and then another half of them have not done regular exercise for the previous month, and then I want to see if different amounts of sleep have a different impact when you do or you don't complete regular exercise. So I've got a mixed design where exercise is between subjects. I've got two groups of people, but the hours of sleep is still within subjects, so on 3 different nights they still experience these different hours of sleep. So in order to do that analysis, this data still has to be normally distributed. So I've checked my descriptive statistics and tests of normality and have found that it is normally distributed, so I can do this more complicated ANOVA analysis. So I go to Analyze, General Linear Model, and Repeated Measures. So we modify the repeated measures ANOVA in order to get the more complicated mixed design. So again, I need to put in my within subjects factor, which is still hours of sleep. And this still has 3 levels. So obviously this number of levels will change depending on the number of levels that they are. So if you have if I had a different design where I just had 2 different levels of hours of sleep, say 3 hours versus 9 hours, this would then be 2. So I could click Define, and I put 3 hours, 6 hours and 9 hours then into the within subjects variable. However, I now have a between subjects independent variable group, so I can put that into the between subjects factor box here. So now I've got my within subjects variable defined and then my between subjects variable defined there. Now what I can do is get a quite useful graph with my results. So I will put hours of sleep on the horizontal axis, on the x-axis. So I'll have 3, 6 and 9 across the bottom of the graph, and I'll put group in separate lines. So one line will represent the group that have had regular exercise, and another line will represent the group that haven't done regular exercise. And then I'll click Add. So that will just be quite useful to help me interpret the data. Then I also go to post hoc because I want some follow-up tests to be completed. So I'll have the omnibus test, but I also want the pairwise comparisons. So post hoc gives us those pairwise comparisons for the between subjects independent variable, which is group. And like for the between subjects ANOVA, we'll select Tukey. And then to get the pairwise comparison for hours of sleep, we come into options, and you'll see now I can do pairwise comparisons for group, for hours of sleep, and for the interaction between group and hours of sleep. And the best thing is to select all of them, and then you can look in detail at the results when you get the output. So again, if I'd made specific predictions about all the relationships between the levels of the independent variables, then I could leave this as none. But if I wanted to be more conservative, if I hadn't made specific predictions, then I could use this Bonferroni correction, which just means that the follow-up tests will be at a more conservative level. And again, you can have descriptive statistics, and you can get effect size and power estimates as well. So we'll click Continue, and then we'll click OK. So here we are, general linear model, and we'll just mix ANOVA for exercise by hours of sleep. and then again hours of sleep. And we'll just save this. I'll just scroll through the results. So we've got descriptive statistics here, and then the test of sphericity, tests of the within subjects factors, so hours of sleep, and then the interaction between hours of sleep and group, between subjects effects, so the effect of group exercise or not, and then you come down to the estimated marginal means here, and then you've got the pairwise comparisons for group and the pairwise comparisons for hours of sleep, and then right at the bottom you've got the graph that we had. So it's just a good idea to come and have a look at this to get an idea of what the data looks like. So we've got hours of sleep across the bottom, and we know that 1, 2 and 3 is equal to 3, 6 and 9 hours of sleep. So if we double click on the graph, so if you want to modify the graph so that it's got kind of proper axis legends and a title, you can click on the bits you want to change. So if we come down here, I know that 1, 2 and 3 is equal to 3, 6 and 9 hours sleep. So I'll just come in here and put in 3 hours, 6 hours and 9 hours. And then I know that this x-axis here is actually the errors on the memory orientation test. And then this here, whoops, if it will let me edit it, hopefully it will. There we go. So we can either take that title away or just say errors on test by group and hours of sleep. There we go. And then we can leave group as it is. Blue is exercise and green is no exercise. So if we close that, then you can see the data. So you can see for 3 hours of sleep there is a difference between these groups, but then the difference gets less and less the more hours sleep there are. So that just helps you to kind of interpret the data. And that's it.